What's up, everybody? It's RJ here, and welcome back to the Find Your Flow channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about just-in-time versus just-in-case knowledge. Now, if you're not familiar with these two terms, just-in-time versus just-in-case knowledge, what I want to do in this video is talk about the differences between the two. How much knowledge do you need for a certain instance or a certain time frame? And also what is a little bit too much that you are just kind of over or excessively consuming on. Now, these two concepts, I first heard about this difference between just-in-time versus just-in-case knowledge from Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Workweek. If you've never read that book, I highly recommend it. Even if you think that the title is a little bit silly or catchy in the kind of gimmicky way, it's definitely not what the book's about. The whole premise is about increasing your productivity, being able to reduce the number of hours you spend at work, not down to the point of it being a 4-hour work week, but just being way more efficient with your time and finding ways around doing the work that you don't necessarily need to do, or doing more of the stuff that's going to actually move the needle forward for you. And that's really where the concept of just-in-time versus just-in-case knowledge comes into play here, because one thing that Tim talked about, and like I mentioned, this is the first time I heard about this concept, is you've got to weigh the amount of knowledge you need for what's actually being achieved. Or are you somebody that's just trying to accumulate a bunch of knowledge without taking action? And so that's kind of the main difference between just-in-time versus just-in-case knowledge. I'll give you an example of it. I just finished rolling a podcast with my friend Tony, which will be available next week. So definitely check out that FlowCast episode to listen to our discussion. Tony just attended a week-long silent meditation retreat, a virtual one because there's still social distancing going on. But something he learned about that, and something I had to learn kind of in preparation for the conversation, is what you can kind of hear on the podcast. And in particular, I went about learning and catching back up on some of the different instances of meditation retreats that I've read about in the past, whether it's from Sam Harris, who's got the excellent Waking Up Meditation podcast and app, or Dan Harris, who, with no relation to Sam, is another guy in the meditation world who wrote the book 10% Happier and has been a big proponent for meditation in terms of those people who don't traditionally find themselves to be quote unquote meditators. So I went back, and just in time for this podcast, I learned and relearned some of the information that I had picked up from studying from these guys in the past. And that's a perfect example of just-in-time knowledge. So another example would be, if you're trying to get a business started, you'd have to read some books or you'd have to do some research on how to write a business plan. But in the sort of just-in-case knowledge aspect, that would be kind of the frivolous knowledge you may not actually need at that point in time. You may need, a cursory glance at what it's going to be like when your business goes bankrupt, or how to sell your business. And often when you're writing a business plan, those kinds of things come up in discussion, and at least to know or have a contingency plan around. But you don't necessarily need to read books and books, stacks of knowledge on bankruptcy if you're just trying to get started with a business. That's more of an example of just-in-case knowledge. Or, if you're reading something that's totally irrelevant to that. And there's not always something that's necessarily wrong with reading things that are outside of the realm of, whatever's generating revenue for you or driving your business forward. It's good to keep your mind open and learn from a bunch of different fields. It's something that I definitely like to do. But I think the most important part with just-in-case knowledge is knowing when you have to back off on that, especially if it's crunch time. If you've got to get something done and you can only spare the time for whatever you need to learn to keep moving forward inch by inch, that's where it's important to know and recognize this concept of just in time versus just in case. And so, as I mentioned, it's certainly okay to read just for pleasure and explore new topics, explore new realms, but also don't overdo it with learning like a completely new topic if it's not related to your core interests or your dream goals at which you're trying to achieve in a given time frame. And so the other reason that I think it's so critical that we recognize this difference between just in time and just in case, and I think, I've fallen victim to this a lot in the past, is we have a tendency, most of us, especially if we're interested in, personal development or we've got these big goals, it always feels like it's productive to learn more, but there's a big difference between actually taking action and just learning more, reading books on the topic of whatever you're trying to do. So if you identify yourself as somebody who doesn't take enough action, or maybe you've got a dream goal that you're trying to accomplish or work towards, and you're kind of being held back because you're just picking up book after book and trying to learn just a little bit more, I would recommend that you really take this to heart and just ask yourself, is this something that you need right now as far as what you're learning? Or is this something that you can put off till later because it's more of a just in case kind of example of knowledge? So I just want you to recognize that taking action is crucial to making progress. A lot of people get wound up in the contemplation of constantly learning new things without actually taking real action and moving forward in whatever it is they want to achieve. And so if you're going to keep moving forward, and cross that finish line towards your dream goal, you're going to have to put down the stack of books and take action. So start to ingrain the mentality of always taking action and really bring to your core that value of progress. The more that you generate this bias towards action and progress, the more growth you're going to see, and the more you're going to get yourself towards whatever goals you've got that you want to achieve. So that's all I've got for you in this video. I hope that you liked it. If you did, it would really help if you hit that thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. It really makes a difference. And of course, as always, until the next episode, dream on and find your flow.